Good morning, my name is Guadarrama. Today I will present my English 10 and Modern World History POL. Um, I will do a character analysis from the book called Fahrenheit 451. I chose Guy Montag. He is a dynamic character which throughout the story is confident but changes slowly into a doubtful man due to revealing facts he did not consider before. The first character analysis is that in the beginning of this book, Guy Montag is very confident about himself. He clearly states, at the last moment when disaster seemed positive, he pulled his hands from his pockets and broke the fall, grasping the golden pole. He shows a high self-confidence in himself because it is clear he had everything under control before he fell on the floor and hurt himself. Character analysis number 2. I noticed he became doubtful after he met Clarice, since Clarice started putting thoughts into him and that he didn't consider before, as I said in my thesis. He was not happy, he said the words to himself. He started thinking throughout the beginning of the story, he thought he was happy until Clarice asked him the question and he stayed with the doubt. And throughout the middle of the book, he realized he wasn't really happy. Montag was doubtful due to his confusion of what he thought he felt and what he really felt. Guy Montag was brave towards the end of the book in the third section, when he's running from the police for committing murder and for taking the books. Like gray animals preying from electric caves, faces with gray colorless eyes, gray tongues, and gray thoughts looking out through the numb flesh of the face, but he was at the river. This clearly states he's brave. He showed bravery when he traveled through the dangers of the dark streets and finally found his way into the mysterious river that was beyond what he ever had gone. And after he crossed the river, when he met the other people, he didn't really know who they were, but he took the risks and then he figured out that they were all people like him that were brave enough and that were rebellious against the laws that allowed books to be banned. Now we'll start with my history PO. I chose Essential Skill 2, Revolutions. The American and French Revolution had a comparison due to unfair taxing. Its differences go along the lines of social inequalities and causes. My first piece of evidence is from my notes, and the French Revolution was caused by natural rights being removed and the third estates paying more taxes than any other state, even if they were the poorest. And now it's different because it's even across the board. Everyone pays the same amount and it's all equal. Now they both have something in common, which is the American and French revolutions had influences from Enlightenment thinkers. For example, John Locke, he thought natural rights, he believed in natural rights and that people had the right to overthrow the government if they refused to do that. And Jacques Rousseau also thought people had all the power and that people were naturally good, so they deserved to have all the say in what they were governed and how they were governed. And without any of them influencing the revolutions, nothing would have changed, and today we would have had the same government type as we did years ago. On the other hand, the causes of the American Revolution impacted America for different reasons than the French Revolution. The causes of the American Revolution were the Stamp Act and the Tea Tax and the Intolerable Acts. For example, the closing of Boston Harbor and when the troops could go trial in England instead of Boston when the crime was committed in Boston. And maybe it would have been the same if it would have been the same now, England would have took over completely and took over. Thank you for listening. I'm gonna start with my DBQ. I started off my DBQ by reading the excerpt, and I annotated. For example, on the top it says President William McKinley. By saying President, I know he's in a high position of power, and that he has high impacting on decisions. And when I started reading the excerpt, I underlined they were unfit for self-governed, and annotated in bad condition for a high position in government. So and continuing the excerpt, it says there is nothing left for us to do but to take them over. By this, I annotated that they thought there was no way out, but actually I feel like they took the easy way out and just took them over instead of trying to show them how to govern themselves to keep them independent. And then we would be able to educate the Filipinos, but we could uplift and civilize and Christianize them. I thought that was really like these three listings of words, it brought me back to how the United States wanted the ideal person to run the ideal government. So I annotated, sounds as if they wanted to make the ideal society as if the Filipinos weren't good enough to run their own country. And I underlined educated the Filipinos because that's what the United States thought. But what if the Filipinos were educated enough to do their own job and govern themselves? The question asks, how does President McKinley justify the U.S. taking over the Philippines? My thesis, I started off with, the President McKinley justifies the U.S. taking over the Philippines by explaining that they weren't educated nor proper enough to govern themselves. The piece of evidence I grabbed from the excerpt was the President stated unfit for self-govern due to the U.S.'s idea of the ideal person. They negatively saw Filipinos with lack of intelligence and civilization.
And we look at your evidence right there. You said the President states unfit for self-government. When I read that out loud, does that make sense?
Not really. I feel like I have to add more.
So what could you potentially add to make that a little bit more clear?
The President stated in the excerpt.
Okay, in the excerpt, but you just go straight to unfit. Like, who is unfit?
Filipinos.
Okay, so you could add the President stated that
Filipinos were not
and then go
yeah.
unfit. Okay, for self-government. And when you say futility, what's his idea of the ideal person? Who is the ideal person?
White, educated, civilized, and like just the appearance of how they were, even if they weren't proper first, like even if they weren't good enough to govern, only because they were white and the appearance they thought they were good enough.
Okay.
To start the grammar tree, I had to read the sentence over and over to figure out. Then I put the parts of speech of the words, and I left this blank right here. It's a pronoun, and of is a preposition. And I first wrote the sentence, and then I labeled each as their parts of speech. So as hypercritical, I put adjective, and for drug dealers, I put drug as an adjective because it's describing what type of dealers. And after that, I put the phrases, but I feel like they're wrong. The phrases.
every independent clause means what?
A noun, phrase, and the verb.
Okay, so I don't have it now. Do you have a noun phrase and a verb phrase?
No.
No, so we need to find out what the noun phrase and the verb phrase are. So what is the sentence about? What's the subject?
Drug dealers.
The drug dealer. So wrap that drug dealer should become what?
Noun.
Noun.
Please. I don't think that's part of that.
That's all of it. That's so far. So what's the verb?
That they're in the United States.
So are is what?
Adjective.
That's what you put. What is are?
Or as in they're in the
Like
United States.
ARE. I said is, am, are, one, were, be, being, are always.
Being verb. The verb's right.
Verb. So fix the other are too. So that would make are in the United States, just as you explained. What?
Verb phrase.
Verb phrase. There we go. Why do you erase the comma?
I wasn't sure, and then we had to turn in, so I just.
Okay, so why does a comma not go there?
I feel like the pause wasn't good to be there. Like it wasn't a good pause.
Okay. Good. Thank you. Hugo, you prefer? Let's have Angela. Tell me what time we're done with the week. Angela, Dylan, Robert. That's how you be on the student panel. You can sit back in the normal time. You can sit back in the normal time. Obviously, you're ready. You want to be here for 3.5 hours.